Welcome to the 98% podcast, where we hear real stories from real people. And I'm here with Melvin Douglas. So, Melvin, how have you been? Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing great. It's great to see you. It's been way too long. It's good to see you. Looks like you're staying active and healthy and all of those good things. So that's what I'm trying to do also.
Nice.
Is stay fit. I want to live for a long time to annoy my kids for a while.
Isn't that the best? I mean, you gotta live to be so old.
I'm hoping so.
I love it. Okay, cool. So, how do you know me?
Yeah, that's great. We were peers. I guess we started as direct econs at Nike when we both worked there back a long time ago, before things started getting real crazy there. But we were peers in the direct econ role. Then we went to, what was it, Next Trainer and NAX Trainer, and kind of went through that whole iteration. So we met 2017. Was that when you started in that role? 2017?
I think it was, actually, I want to say 2016, actually.
16. Okay. Yeah. I was saying, I think I was looking through some pictures, and it looked like there was a escape room that we were in the fall of 2017. So I couldn't remember if that was when it began or if it was earlier than that. So
yeah, that was a good one. I remember that. I saw your picture you sent of the escape room. That was a good time, because at first when you sent it, I was like, where was that? And then I was like, oh yeah, that was that escape room. Didn't we finish it in we only had what, a minute left or something like that?
We did. We took it down to the wire. We used all of the time on that one. But yeah, looking at that picture, there were some, it was funny seeing all those faces and remembering that. That was a good time. It really was.
It was a really good time.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's how we knew each other, through starting that role, being in our own markets, and then evolving into the COVID thing, where our life was, it seemed like we got to know each other a whole lot better through Zoom and being on all those video sessions all the time, working together. It was a great time.
It was a great time, man. COVID is such a weird time though, too. It was in general just for everybody, but our role was so interesting at the time. I remember them just closing down stores, okay, you're working from home, and I'm just like, what are we supposed to do? So I don't know about you, but I know for the first month, I don't think I was doing a whole lot of anything. I was just kind of at home, still trying to communicate, but the stores were closed for a long time. That was definitely a shift for us, but we got really good at Zoom. I remember that.
we were Zoom ninjas there for a while. I was trying to remember what the platform was we started on right before that. We went to Zoom pretty quickly.
It was Blue Jeans.
That's it, Blue Jeans. Yes. Yeah.
And then we realized we didn't have Blue Jeans doesn't have the capacity to do what we wanted to do, so they switched. But the only reason I remember that is because for some weird reason I deleted some of my so I canceled some invites, and some stores up till the time when I left were still getting invites for old invites from Blue Jeans, and I'm like, no, I don't have a call today. I was like, it shouldn't be on your calendar. I don't know why it is. So that's the only reason why I remember that.
That's hilarious. Yeah, Blue Jeans. That was funny. Yeah, I know when COVID started, same. I didn't know what to do, so I had my laptop at home, so I just started diving into DNA and any resource. I just picked the Nike website and everything we had access to apart, just trying to learn as much as I could about stuff. And that helped me pass the time quite a bit. But you're right, no one was in stores for a while. I think you and I in our markets maybe had some of the first stores that came back or something.
I think so.
So we had some that started pretty quick, but the word I got was, do not go near those stores.
Yeah.
Just unless you need something, stay away.
Yeah.
So
we did work from home for almost a year and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a long time.
Yeah, that was crazy. Work from home. And then I remember them being like, okay, now you got to get back in stores. We were being like, oh, dang it. We just figured out how to master our role from home. And then the funny thing is the minute I started going into stores again, the more I realized like, oh yeah, I missed this. I just you forget, right? I just forgot about
Hmm.
the connection element. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
wild times.
Yeah. I guess it's the old guy to learn a new tricks things, but I really loved both aspects of that, of going in the store, being in the store. That's where I got juice and energy.
Yep.
But it was fun being online, working with my peers, working with you, doing those, what was it, the interview and resume workshops and all of those leadership development workshops and all those things, getting on with peers from all over the country and just kind of doing our thing and watching each other do it. That was great. But being in the stores was a lot of fun. What stunk was when we had to do those sessions from a store, because there is no worse internet anywhere in the world than in a Nike store. It's it's terrible, and
It's so bad.
yeah, yeah, and trying to be getting stuck in a store and having to do an online training session was terrible. I hated that. I would plan my day so that I could get somewhere. Even Starbucks had better Wi-Fi than most Nike stores trying to do those things. So it
Yeah, the
was.
challenges we struggle with. It's funny. Luckily, with in Kansas City, when I moved back to Kansas City, they had an office there, so I had no issues there, and the internet seemed to be okay. But man, when I was in Iowa when it first happened, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, that store was terrible. Like the Wi-Fi was cutting off all the time. So it
Hmm.
kind of just became routine, just like, hey, if I drop off, just stay on. I'll hop back on, and we'll finish the training session.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Something else.
exactly.
Yeah, it's funny when we were talking about the things we worked on together. For some reason, I kept thinking about the. You remember the AKA binder we were working on?
Yes, yeah.
We wanted because they were like trying to figure out how to do training. We're like, well, I think stores still need an analog training, and we pitched it
Hmm.
to I remember to our boss and stuff, and then just I don't know, nothing ever happened after that. But I remember we
Yeah,
worked on that together. It's me, you, and Han, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I need to have him on the podcast too. He'd be a good guest.
Yeah. And what Yvonne jumped on with us too there for a while. She and I went down kind of a history and heritage
Mm,
thing on that for a little bit. I remember with that binder, I'm a pack rat. I keep everything. I kept
yeah.
that binder for a long time. And I there was somebody, I was in an office at a store or something, and I had that binder there, and an athlete came in and saw that and thought they had stumbled upon the Ark of the Covenant. They thought that
Yes.
was the most amazing thing ever. I
Yeah.
said, man, it's yours. With great power comes great responsibility, so you got to use this right. But
Nice.
that was so fun. They thought that was the big unlock.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was cool. I passed it on to somebody I think that really would have used it.
That's awesome. I think I left mine at one of the stores because, yeah, the stores we were kind of beta testing with, they actually loved it. It's funny because it's analog, it's not digital like everybody wants to go, but there was, as long as we monitored it and we had someone that was kind of in charge of keeping up to date, like it was,
Mhm.
I was surprised with how successful it was because people were referencing it all the time, at least in those stores.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. People loved it. I mean, in a store, that was something that was really big, to be able to physically put your hands on something to take it around. Not everybody could fit in the break room and you couldn't take people off all the time, but to be able to have that analog, um, that object to be able to work off of, that was pretty cool.
I thought so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Melvin, how this is going to work? So, I have a whole list of questions, and I give every guest the same questions because the goal is just for us to get to know you, um,
Right.
and just connect with you. So, we'll start with the first one here. So, what was growing up like for you?
Let me see. Growing up for me, eh, you know, in the rear view, things are always a lot clearer, a lot sharper. But I had an awesome childhood. I really did. You can kind of break it up into two or three different kind of areas, I guess, or I'm not Taylor Swift, but I had my eras, I guess, when I was a kid. From the time I was born till fifth grade, we lived in the same kind of small town in southern Illinois, and my folks both grew up in that area. So I had my parents, I had my grandparents, had cousins, aunts and uncles all around. So it seemed like as a kid growing up, I knew everybody. And, it was back in the old days where you could leave the house in the morning, come back at night, and just be out on your own as a kid. I remember walking probably after school from school to my grandmother's house like it was a mile, and me and three or four kids would walk home from school every day, and we weren't worried about anything other than um, just what happened at school that day, or talking or fussing with each other, doing what kids do. So it was pretty idyllic. You could go home, put your books down, run outside and play until it got dark, and not worry about being outside or anything like that. So it was really cool. Loved riding my bike everywhere or around town. That was really cool. So that was fun. My parents worked really, both of them worked a lot. My mom was actually going to nursing school when I was in elementary school. So my dad was working, she was at school working, doing a lot of stuff. So stayed with my grandparents a lot, um, kind of day to day, but folks were home at night. It sounds kind of like a Leave It to Beaver episode or something, from the old reruns, but it was cool. It was fun. All families have drama and stuff like that in them, but it wasn't the centerpiece. It wasn't the focus. So that was like through fifth grade. And oh, by the way, I have a brother he is about 4.5 years younger than me. So a little bit of a gap there, but he was there too. And just like a typical younger brother, if he saw me doing it, he thought he could do it too. So he was out running the streets with me or his friends a lot too. So that was pretty cool. Just being able to do that as kids, building that confidence and being able to be out and about. And then in fifth grade, my dad worked for Exxon. And so we started from fifth grade through ninth grade, we started moving around quite a bit with work. And I think I counted it up the other day in 5 years, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth. In those years, I went to 7 different schools. So we would, generally we would start at one and finish the year, but there were a couple of times where in the middle of the year we moved. And I think the reason I mention that is it wasn't traumatic. It wasn't, as a kid, you don't always want to do it. You want to get somewhere and get settled, but it was always new. Okay, here's a new adventure coming up. Here's someplace new we're going to go, something we're going to do. And I wasn't, you know, how do I put this? I wasn't the most outgoing, a little bit shy. I was, not the most physically fit, not the most attractive kid or whatever. But it was one of those where you would make friends in a new school, which would take a little while, and then boom, at the end of the year you're moving, or so it made it kind of tough. You were learning to start relationships and then see them end. And back then there was no internet, no cell phones, so I will guarantee you back then kids in junior high did not write letters. So you could write a letter to somebody, you're not going to get a reply. You wasted a 6 cent stamp or whatever it was back then. So I mean, you kind of thought, well, I'm not coming back here anymore. These people aren't coming to see me. So put that behind you and then go on to the next one. Just kind of rinse and repeat, start making friends and stuff again. And probably, I could probably blame that on why that may be the reason that we don't keep up, is that it's not that I don't value relationships. It's that it's like well, here we go. We're moving on. We've got our own stuff going, got to reestablish and things like that. So it's not an excuse. It's just probably why those things happen. But then in ninth grade, we landed in Midland, Texas. And that was where I basically finished out junior high and high school in there. So we put down roots, and that was pretty cool. It was bigger city, but a lot going on. Still had a small town feel. We lived in a great neighborhood. I still connect with people that were in that neighborhood today. And actually met a guy the other day who had just moved from Midland. He's quite a bit younger than me. And I asked him, "Oh, what part of town did you live in?" And he told me this street. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I live like 3 blocks from there." And I named all the streets and how you get to his house. And he was like, "Wow, you really did live there." And I was telling him who the friends were that I knew in the neighborhood and stuff like that on the streets he lived on. So probably freaked him out, but that was kind of funny going, "Oh yeah, I know exactly where that is." So that was kind of, I guess, that next area of stability, roots, and really being able to connect with people and build those relationships and things like that. And that's where, growing up in West Texas, there's football and spring football. So that's pretty much all year round is what you're doing. So I played football out there, connected with the athletes and a lot of people that way. And that kind of really sunk the hooks in me on sports and having that as something that was a big interest. I always kind of liked sports, and liked a lot of different ones, but in that aspect, I really had a chance to participate and be involved in it more. So that was kind of childhood and growing up.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something real quick. So what do you think? Because I remember my childhood too, and my childhood was pretty similar as far as like I remember we could walk places, we could go places. We didn't really care about too much of safety issues for the most. We just did whatever. We rode four wheelers everywhere we wanted, whatever. Right? How much of
Mm-hmm.
that do you think is maybe a different environment versus like the internet era? Do you think some of it's just because we are so tuned now to all the negative stuff that comes that is out there that makes us more hesitant to let kids go out there? Or do you think it really is just not as safe as it used to be?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think as a society, we bought into the fear,
Mhm.
um, but I think part of it's the internet and the 24-hour news cycle, and that good news doesn't sell. So if there were probably kids being kidnapped and disappearing and stuff like that forever,
Mhm.
but when we started finding out about it and knowing about it and becoming more aware, people really freaked out. And I think we have some things that can probably help us. Giving your kid a cell phone, a flip phone, or having something where you can locate them, find them, and being cautious without being absolute about it. Like, no, you can't go anywhere without me. You can't go. You can't do. It's like, well, let me go with you to this, or let's walk through this. How do we do this? So being more, I think, as parents, you have to be more involved. And there's a line between being involved and being a helicopter parent. And I think if we're a little more involved and aware, it's, I think some of that can happen again. Kids need to be able to play. They don't need 28 parents around watching them do everything and, you know, supervising every move, or you can't do this, you can't do that, or you might get hurt. I can't tell you how many times I fell off the merry-go-round at the playground, or the metal slide in the middle of the summer was really hot and I
Yeah.
blistered the back of my leg, or something like that. I mean, you're going to get bumps and bruises, and that's knowledge. If kids don't have that, if they can't get out of the house, if the internet's the only thing they know, or their only boundaries, or their only risk taking, I think it doesn't set them up for success later on.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you mentioned even like doing all that stuff helped you be more confident. I think that's a big part is if we don't allow our kids sometimes, to be able to step back a little bit and let our kids like, hey, like you want to walk to a friend's house? That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think about it, like there's two risks there. There's a risk of like, yes, something could happen to them in the short term, and that is possible. Or think about the long term ramifications. If we don't allow them to do things like that, we're not setting them up for success as adults, right? We're teaching them to be
Right.
afraid. We're teaching them not to be able to handle things. And yeah, at the end of the day, what as a parent, what do you prefer? Do you want your kid to be overly cautious, or do you want them to be able to be confident enough to take risks at times and to trust their own, conscience and insights? And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. We were my wife and I. We were the scourge of my kids' elementary school for a while because she was working and traveling a lot, and I had a small construction business. I was building privacy fences. We have those down here. Not everybody has them, but it's that 6 foot wooden
Yeah.
picket fence. Used to build those, and in third grade, yeah, I guess third, fourth grade for my kids. They were a year apart in school. We got them flip phones, and the reason we did that is there were restrictions that went with it, but the reason we did that was with me working, being on job sites, and my wife maybe being out of town. I wanted to be able to connect with the kids and say, "Hey, I can't be there to get you, but walk home, and when you get home, text me, or text me when you're leaving school, and text me when you get home," so that we could touch base. The
Mhm.
deal was those phones were supposed to be off all day at school. Well, got a few calls that somehow that didn't happen a couple of
Yeah.
times, but you take it away enough times and ground people, that message gets in there, or they become smarter about hiding it. But anyway, something like that. It was, and the parents hated us around there because, well, your kid's got a phone now, my kid wants one. Well, I'm not responsible for your kid and getting them home from school and back and forth. So you got to make that decision as a parent. But for us, it worked. And it was something that we decided to do so that my kids had some freedom. They weren't sitting in school all afternoon waiting for somebody to get there, or they took off home and I didn't know where they were. As long as we had that communication, I think the words I used was, I always want to be able to find you on a map. So as long as I know where you are, I'm fine. But if when when that's not the case, that's when we have a problem, when we have an issue. So it worked out for us okay. They survived not only childhood, but they survived their parenting. So they've thrived and done better from it, I guess.
Good. Good. I love that. Okay. So childhood. So you mentioned moving a lot and kind of
Mhm.
transitioning and then finding your place. I guess you said Midland, where you really felt like that was home for you.
Right.
Um, Now, what do you feel like has been the biggest struggle that you've made it through?
Um, when you look back at it, I'm going to be 61 this summer. So when you look back in the Wayback Machine, my life's been pretty darn easy. A lot of the hurdles I've jumped have been in my own creation. So probably the biggest struggle I've had is surviving myself and getting around the messes I've created. I you know I think trying to think of the best way to put this. I have thought about this quite a bit, but I think the biggest struggle is from not taking myself too seriously. Not being too wrapped around the axle about things in my life. About, look, step back, take a wide angle lens, look from a high level, whatever. Is this a really bad situation? Or are you just creating a lot of tension, a lot of stress? Are you getting worked up about something that's going to resolve and work out in the end? Um, you know, I lots of decisions. When I got out of high school, I was set to go to one college, and things were going to work out. I was going to go. I was going to be a student, and then I got talking to another guy, and ended up walking on at a smaller school to play football for a year, to try to play football. I was basically a human tackling dummy or blocking sled, you know.
Yeah.
But it answered the question of, okay, I know this is not my future. So that was cool. It answered that question. I didn't have to live with that of could I done it, could I not. I went and tried and kind of proved to myself, this is not for me. And so, at one point you think, well, that's a big hurdle making that decision, or that's something hard you've overcome. And it wasn't. I stayed at that school, got a degree. I didn't focus on enjoying the time I was there as much as just trying to get the fastest way out. How do I get out? And then I get out, and it's like, well, what are you going to do now, smart guy? You've got this degree, and you got out in a hurry, but what are you going to do? And so I kind of, for the next few years, it was always kind of chasing what's the most money I can make? What do I fit in? I wasn't a specialist. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't a lawyer. I was a marketing major. So, I think somebody said that and buck will get you a cup of coffee somewhere. That's about it. So it was trying to figure out, what do I do? Where do I fit in? I met my wife in college. It was one of those things where I knew the moment I met her, that we met, that, okay, this is who I'm marrying. And trying to make my 20 something year old self connect with that, balance with that. It wasn't a huge hurdle, but it was like, go with it, man. This person gives you a really good feeling. You really care about this person. Let loose and go with it. And so, again, another situation where I was kind of fighting myself for no really good reason, creating all these windmills and dragons to fight. So I think when I finally got to um, Nike back in 2007, just as a part-time athlete, it's something where I was becoming more at peace with, I'm not going to be moving to Oregon to take over Phil Knight's office. This is a job, something where I can serve people, I can help people, I can reach a certain level, and I can take care of people at home too and do some certain things for them. I can fill a lot of needs in a lot of places, and it's not where the whole family is depending on me to keep the lights on. So it was something where there was a piece with me of your role, your what you were doing is serving other people and helping, being there for your family and the people that are important to you. And I think when I realized that, that kind of helped me overcome a lot of self-induced angst or anxiety or hurdles or whatever you want to call it. So I haven't had any huge physical ailments or emotional issues or things like that. Most of it has been just trying to be things that maybe I didn't know what I wanted to be, or trying to be something I wasn't, and coming to grips with, oh, that's not you. That's not the big plan. So kind of a boring answer, but no huge drama, no gunfights, car chases, anything like that. Just kind of average.
Yeah. Well, do you think you just put a lot of pressure on yourself? You think that's what it was? Where the
Uh,
anxiety
it,
came from?
it was absolutely. My like I said earlier, my family has always been supportive. The people that have been around me have always been carrying and behind me, and I think I didn't want to let people down. But I didn't probably take the time to sit down and discuss, and what does letting them down look like? What is that? What is success? What is failure? It always goes back. It's definitely an old cliche, but failure is not trying. So I think I always feel that I want to give things a shot, but sometimes it helps to talk to people. And is giving this a shot worth it, or is it just a token failure? Is it like, well, it's not really impactful. It doesn't mean anything. Try if you're really going to give something your all and risk failing, make it worthwhile. Make it something that is really important, really impactful.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard somewhere that a lot of people think not taking action on something is like is basically like that. Like you're not making a decision, but I've heard that inaction. I mean, it is a decision in itself, right? And sometimes by not doing something, that could have bigger or repercussions in the future than
Mm-hmm.
choosing something else, right? So I think that's I like that you did that. Like a lot of things that you just decided to try just to see, because then you know that you wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe if you wouldn't have tried it 10 years down the road, you would have thought like, you know what? Maybe you would have regretted it, right? Or had regrets about not doing it. So that's actually a good insight to take, I think, for people.
Yeah. I've got a lot of scars, internally and externally. But it's like, oh, I tried something, and I know I'm not going to do that again. But I gained knowledge and
Yeah,
insight.
exactly. You learned a
So,
lot. And I think that's the funniest things. I used to be that way. I used to be like, I used to hate failure. Like any type of failure, I just tried to avoid it. And I didn't realize until you have, I mean, not till you hit rock bottom, but until you like really fail at something and then see in hindsight what it did for you is
mhm.
amazing, right? So when you think about it, failure is totally just a learning lesson. And we tend to learn more from failure than we do from success, anyways. So I don't,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. You're right. I think that failure is two pronged. If you don't try something, then that's kind of a failure. And if you don't learn something from trying something, whether you succeed or not, that's a failure too. I mean,
yeah,
it's go into things with your eyes open. If you're just oblivious and don't take anything from it, then it's kind of a waste of time. But if you learn something good, bad, or otherwise, that's a positive.
agreed, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing that you mentioned that I thought was really neat is you mentioned you getting in your own way, right? I think that that's something. I think we all do that, right? I think a lot of times we like to point the finger and blame, like, well, that person's the reason why I didn't go there. But sometimes if you look deep enough and realize, like, oh, I'm getting in my own way. And I read this book that I really liked. One of the things, and it was a Mark Manson book, but he talked about like um, take responsibility for everything in your life, which helped me a lot if you think about it, because a lot of times
Hmm.
we can play that victim role or we can put it on someone else as like the reason why we failed or the reason why something happened. But if you go deep enough or far enough back, there's always something you did. Even if someone caused this pain, guess what? You're the one who chose to have that relationship, right? Like if you go far, like deep enough back,
Hmm.
you realize like everything in your life is your responsibility and is a cause of anything that you did in your life. Like up to that point, it's all you really. And I think that's a neat perspective to have. So I really like that. I just want to interject that because I thought that really played well with your story.
Yeah. I think accountability is important. It all comes back to the decisions you make, one way or another. And it's okay to make a mistake, to make the wrong decision. Just own it. Don't throw it on somebody else. The more you try and deflect it, that doesn't do anyone any good. Just own your darn mistake and pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go on with life. Just say, "Dang, I'm not going to do that again," or
Yep,
whatever.
I like that. Okay. So now, what's something that you're currently going through that's either positive or we could say negative too? Just what's something currently that you're going through that you like to share?
Um, I guess the big thing, if I don't say this, probably my wife and my parents will get mad. But
Okay.
a couple right about the time I was leaving Nike. So this was October of 22. Went in for a regular physical, and the doctor, my personal doctor, does an EKG every year just to see how you're doing. And she goes, this one time I went in, she goes, hey, how long have you been in AFib, atrial fibrillation, which is basically, real quick for those that don't know, because I didn't, is your heart beats in a rhythm. Your bottom and top of your heart beat like this to pump blood throughout your system. Well, the bottom part of my heart is beating normal. The top part of my heart's going crazy,
Mhm.
is out of rhythm.
Okay.
So it's off a little bit. The big danger about that is usually it beats more rapidly and blood can pool and you can actually get a stroke from that. So, the doctor said, how long have you been in AFib? And I said, I have no idea. I didn't know I was in AFib. I don't know what that is. So she did another EKG and she goes, yeah, you're in AFib right now. So she set me up with a cardiologist. Having been a runner and an athlete, I think made me a little oblivious to this through the years because I have a pretty low heart rate. Normally, I've been wearing a Garmin watch for years and years. Normally, my heart rate resting is about upper 40s, lower 50s. When I go into AFib, it's my resting heart rate average is upper 50s, lower 60s. So it's only about 10 points higher,
Yeah.
where some people it's up like 120, 130, something like that. They're really in distress and it's crazy. So anyway, I kind of found that out and started talking to a cardiologist and then an electrophysiologist that looks at actually the electrical current in your heart. So I've had a couple of procedures with that. I'll go back into normal sinus rhythm, normal heartbeat for a while, and then it'll pop back out. And basically, what it is I feel like a little flutter or like too much caffeine, maybe. I'll be
Mhm.
fine, and all of a sudden it feels like I get a little jumpy, a little antsy, and that's what it is. I mean, I can still work out, do stuff. I just kind of have to listen to my body. But that's one thing I'm going through now is just trying to get this figured out and how we can get this corrected. I want to find out why, what the root cause of it is, and want to get it fixed. I don't know that we'll be able to do all of that, but we're working on it. So it just takes time and good insurance, I guess. So
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's a. I mean, that's. I can imagine that being kind of a shock, especially not knowing that anything's been wrong in the first place. And I mean, that's. I could see that because I had issues before too, and I can't remember if I ever told you this or not, but I had prostate issues for a long time, and I didn't know it. Um, so I went. I'd say I had it for 6 or 7 years, and I had small symptoms at first, so I didn't even think anything of it as far as prostate goes. But stuff that I probably won't share here on the podcast. It's a little personal,
Gotcha.
but
Gotcha.
there was symptoms and stuff that I knew that something was wrong. I just didn't put two and two together. Didn't think anything of it. But then what happened is throughout the years it got worse and worse and worse. And then it got to the point where I was having trouble sitting down, like just sitting. And for some reason my brain's like, oh, I must have worked out hard the day before, so that's why. So I
Mm-hmm.
had trouble sitting. I was having, I mean, testicular pain. I was having just like all like the things you might have with it. So I started looking up stuff like, and sure enough, I was like, I think it's prostate. So I decided like, well, I don't like the doctors. I never go to the doctors. I'm just one of those people. So I'm like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to figure it out. So I
Oh,
thought, well, what if it's diet related? Because I haven't always had it. If it came up, let's see what happens. So I did like, I can't remember what you call it, diet. Can't remember the name of it, but basically what I was doing is just getting rid of things. So like I got rid of gluten first to see if maybe it was gluten. I started to cut dairy to see if it was dairy. And then the last thing I decided to cut was I was having like 2 coffees a day, 2 lattes, and I decided to cut coffee. The crazy thing is I cut coffee, never had issues again.
wow.
So when I started looking it up, and they said caffeine or coffee can mess with the prostate and mess with certain things. And so I did end up getting checked up, and they said it was just inflamed, but they took tests to see if it was cancerous, or whatever. It wasn't. But yeah, I haven't had any issues since. And I realized that if I rewind back to when I first started seeing symptoms, that's when I started coffee. I wasn't a coffee drinker, and someone talked me into it, and I started drinking coffee. And sure
Yeah.
enough, it's like, dang, that literally affected me that bad. So um, I don't know. So I think caffeine, which I mean, I know caffeine has harmful effects on the body. So I'm curious if, because you said that your heart flutter stuff happens, you think from caffeine too, potentially?
Could be. I've backed off on that quite a bit.
Okay.
I'm an iced tea drinker,
Okay.
not sweet tea,
Yeah.
not with sugar, but just like regular black tea or green tea. I drink a lot of that. So I've cut that in half what I drink,
Yeah.
balance it with water. Um, it hasn't made an impact,
Okay.
but I do keep an eye on it. I do monitor that and try to make sure that I don't, because that can, it's a big circular system thing, is that if I have too much caffeine, then I can't sleep, and poor sleep is a trigger for that
Yep.
also.
Yep.
So it's just like, okay, back off on the caffeine, eat healthy, just work out. Like I probably, you could check my heart rate right now and it would not be in a normal sinus rhythm,
Mhm.
but I feel fine. It's not racing, it's not fluttering. It's it's just normal.
Yeah.
Infuriates my mom, who was a nurse for 100 years. She goes, how, she always asks, and she means this in the best way, is, how is your AFib? I It's fine. I don't notice it. I don't know it, that it's there. I can't tell you. I can tell you I'm not in distress. I'm not. My chest doesn't hurt. Things like that. It's just something that every now and then I can feel it, know it's there, but at least I'm aware of it. I take like a blood thinner now, um, a small amount twice a day. Just the doctors feel confident that that's going to keep me from having a stroke.
Okay.
So that's the important thing, I guess. And just being smart. I'm not 35 or 40 anymore. I'm not 6'8" and bulletproof like I used to be. Just a normal human, just an old guy. So I got to back it off a little bit. But no, it's pretty normal life. I just don't like having, I'm one of those people that don't like loose ends. I don't like that hanging over my head. So it's like, okay, let's get this fixed and let me move on.
I
So,
get that. No, I get that. And that's how I felt too with the whole prostate thing. I felt like, yeah,
mhm.
having that looming all the time. I'm like, it's hard sometimes not to have your brain go in certain directions where you're like, what if it's cancer? Or what if I have this issue? Or what if
Oh, yeah.
this, right? And our minds tend to do that because we want to try to figure it out. But yeah, once it
Yeah.
got fixed, I mean, that was definitely a relief for sure. So yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Kudos to you for figuring that out. I'd like to punch you in the arm for not going to the doctor, but at least you eventually did. And congrats for figuring it out. So
Dude,
that's good.
I'm such a stubborn person. I don't go to the doctor for any reason, and I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if it's a thing like maybe it's a trust thing. I don't trust the doctors and the always getting put on medication stuff or pharmaceuticals, or if it's like
Mhm.
I don't know. I just like to think my body can heal and recover from most things, and I seem to be really healthy. I don't get sick ever, so I'm like maybe what I'm doing for me is fine, but I understand that. I understand that. Like maybe I should get checkups more frequently.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably one of the, I don't remember exactly when, but I kind of crossed that line from where I would accelerate when I drove by the doctor's office just so I didn't stop to, you know what, I'm pretty dogmatic now about every year having that checkup.
Sure.
And, if I hadn't have, I wouldn't have known about the AFib thing.
It's true.
So who knows where that could go. So,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
And I wonder how long you've had it.
Well, the I was wondering about that. The doctor had done an EKG the year before, and it
Okay.
wasn't there.
Okay.
So
Got
it was something that had shown up recently.
it. Got it.
So I felt good about that. That I hadn't been masking it for a long time.
Okay. Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
So
hopefully everything gets fixed, or as far as like, hopefully the AFib like starts to get on point and you're all good. But I'm just glad that
yeah.
you're taking matters in your hands and you're figuring it out, which I think is all you can do.
Yeah, yeah. Annoying doctors, these people just going in and asking a lot of probably really stupid questions, but I'm on a mission here with this to get it figured out and get it under control. So I'm probably working them more than they want, but that's okay.
You got to do what you got to do. You got to make them work.
Yep.
That's why they make the big bucks.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so so Melvin, so what's a skill or talent that you'd like to share with the audience here?
Oh, I'm probably one of the least skilled or talented people around.
Oh,
You know what? I just try to be pretty straight ahead. I guess we laugh here at the house. I'm not very creative.
hmm
My wife and I make a good team. She's very creative. She has great ideas. I'm a grinder. I'm an executioner. If she says, "Okay, I want to do this," or "We need to do this," boom, I'm on it. I can grind it out, get that done. That's what I used to tell Zito all the time. Hanging out with all of you econ trainers and stuff, y'all were extremely creative. It was amazing the stuff that you could come up with. That just wasn't my wheelhouse. I was a grinder. I stole from every one of you all the time. Any good idea you came up with, I was on it and trying to replicate it and implement it in my area, but I couldn't. Somehow, it just didn't connect with me to come up with it to get those steps ahead. So maybe that's it. Um, maybe I have a knack for finding good ideas and stealing them,
using your resources.
using my resources. But I will say, in stealing those, I never denied it. I would generally tell people in advance, "I am so stealing this," or I'm taking this idea and I'm going to run with it. I will give you all the credit you deserve, but I'm going to try and put my brand on it too.
Love that.
So
So
yeah,
yeah, so I guess we would say your skill or talent is executing and finding good resources to utilize. Is that right?
I'm yes, I'm a resource identifier. That's a very very politically correct way of
There we
putting
go.
that. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, cool. Here, I'm going to switch sides real quick. I feel like mine.
Okay.
How does my video look? Does it look okay on your end?
It looks good. It's starting and stopping a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I have a feeling I'm out in the sun and maybe my computer's trying to overheat. So let me
Ah,
switch sides here.
yeah.
Not
Yep.
ideal, but got to do what I got to do.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I get it.
Oh,
I can tell you one thing I'm finding out I don't have a talent for is musical instruments. I've always wanted to play guitar. And when I was a kid, like elementary school, again, folks were very supportive. They got me a guitar, tried to learn. I just wasn't smart enough at that age to do it. In high school, I tried, but I was playing football in high school and I was a lineman. So my hands were bruised and swollen all the time. So that wasn't really conducive to playing guitar. So now that I've retired and have time, it's something that I thought, I'm going to try to pick it up again. So in January, I bought just a cheap acoustic guitar and kind of trying to learn chords and stuff. My hands were not built for that, but I'm really trying to build that hand strength and stuff and work on it. But it's a challenge and I enjoy it. It's a great hobby, but I am never going to be the star of open mic night playing guitar.
hey, well, I'm glad you're trying. So that's what I can tell you firsthand because I know guitar. It's not really a
Hmm.
talent game. Most instruments are not. It's literally you got to put in the work and the hours to figure it out. So it took me 2 years of playing because I was self-taught. So because I was stubborn, I was like, I don't
Hmm.
want to learn how to play like anybody else. I just want to figure it out. And it took me like two
Hmm.
years to play anything any good at all. You know. So
Yeah.
so yeah. So kudos to you for actually picking it up and doing that. My mom's actually doing that right now. That's her big thing that she's learning is like she's picking up the guitar, she's being consistent, and yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
just learning some chords, playing a few songs maybe you like, you'll
Yeah.
catch on. It just takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. I got it in January. So this is like, I think this is week like 20, 27, 28, something like that. And I'm averaging about 4 or 5 days a week of 30 minutes to an hour, just sitting down, clearing the mind, and practicing on it. So it's learning the chords and getting the fingers to
Yep.
go in the right place. And plus, these hands were not built for guitar, so I'm having to get them shaped to fit in the fret and not mash three strings at once.
Hey, well, hey, if you ever want to jam out sometime and do a little practice sesh, let's do it. I'll grab my acoustic, and it's funny too because like I played guitar for a long time, but I've never been like a chord specialist. Like I've always been like a guy that does riffs because I always play metal music, right? And yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
recently I've started like let's start to play some like just normal, just acoustic songs with chords. So I'm actually kind of in the same boat as you, really. So I think we should have a jam session sometime.
I'll sit down and learn a few riffs and we can just trade riffs back and forth.
Hey, we'll just find a song we like to do together, and we'll just come together and we'll just play it.
There you go.
Be good. I
There
like
you
that.
go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then that leads us to the next question, which you might have answered because the next question is, what are you currently learning about that you'd like to teach us? I don't know if that's the acoustic guitar. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's probably I don't know that I can teach anyone that, but I am learning about that. I've started reading more. I'm trying to knock down about a book a month,
Mm,
just kind of to expand on some stuff. And I'm just trying to learn more about healthy living as I'm growing older.
yeah.
That's something that's kind of become important. So I'm reading more about how I can make little changes in my life just to live healthier longer.
Okay.
So
So what are you learning
that's
specifically? What are some of the things that you can share?
well, I have just started a book. It's called, what is it? I can't remember the name of it. Went blank. Dr. Mark Hyman is the guy's name. Um, I think Young Forever is the name of it. Yeah, Young Forever. But I'm learning about the body systems and how they're interconnected, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about instead of taking medicine for everything, figuring out the root cause of stuff.
Yep.
Like being overweight can lead to diabetes, which can lead to heart problems, respiratory problems, stomach problems, things like that. So okay, how do you get your systems in order? How do you identify the root cause? So okay, maybe you change your diet where you're not eating junk all the time,
Yep.
where it's back to fruits and vegetables and really getting more natural healthy stuff in your diet. And then exercising doesn't have to be 2 hours in the gym every day. 30 minutes of getting your heart rate up
Yep.
is awesome. Just small steps, slow steps, getting started on that. Um, that helps your digestion, that helps your weight, that helps your heart. All of those things. It takes a load off of that. So you really can impact your body and add to the longevity. If you look at your chronological age versus your biological age, your chronological age, you can't control the day you were born and the year you were born. That stays the same. But your biological age, you can impact that with small changes, no smoking, changing up your diet to be more healthy, working out or being active. I hate to say working out, just being more active, not being sedentary. um, that can add, those three things can add years to your life and decrease your biological age, your current biological age, immensely. And it's a quick impact. So if you just really get into it and do more things, um, you can make a huge impact on your life. I mean, he was saying early in this book that there is no reason that in the US we should not expect to live to be 120. We have the resources here. It's focusing on the things that we need to do as a society, as an individual to do that. So, that may be kind of extreme, but It's like I said, I want to be around to annoy people for a long time, my family. So I guess I think in the genes there's something good. I had a grandfather, my paternal grandfather lived to be 100, and my mom and dad are both in their 80s. They're both alive. They're both active and in great shape. So I think I got some of the good foundations. I just got to make sure I don't screw it up. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I've heard that guy's name before, and I might have listened to some stuff from him. So I know I was listening
Hmm.
to a podcast with Peter Attia. I don't know if you've heard of him. Um,
Sounds familiar.
but he's also in that realm. But he said literally, he's like, there's two things that cause people to have shorter lifespans and are almost at the root of all illness. He said one is smoking, and he said two is obesity. He's like,
Hmm.
if you can figure out both of those, like you will lengthen your lifespan by a lot, and you will prevent yourself from getting a lot of the illnesses that are rooted within those two things. And it's really
Right.
interesting when you think about it like that. Like, oh, so literally, if I just go to the gym and be active and control what I eat, I'm going to lengthen my lifespan a lot. Yes. Stop
Hmm.
smoking. Guess what? Same thing. And I'm like, that's so interesting. Like, because I think we overcomplicate a lot of things, right? When we think about health, I mean, you know, there's health books and there's health resources out the wazoo, and they're in all
Right.
different directions. But to simplify it like that, like there's two things that you can do right now that are going to help, and then
Hmm.
you know the details or whatever you decide to do as far as the health part goes. But like, I mean,
Right.
that's huge just to know that those two changes, if you're someone who does smoke or someone who is obese, that's going to help like right away. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then me, you know, one thing for me is more functional strength and conditioning as I age, making sure that my core is strong, you know, so I
Yeah,
can lift and bend and stand up and down and things like that. I don't have to throw car axles over my head or things like that,
exactly.
but just to be able to stand up and you know work in the yard or garden or do stuff around the house or someday pick up a grandkid or you know a dog or something like that. That's those are the important things. So
Agreed. Totally agree. And it's funny, right when
yeah.
you said that, it reminded me of one of the Econ summits we went to where we were partners. Do you remember we were partners when we were doing that little
Yes,
exercise?
on the
What were
Bo
we doing?
Jackson.
We were doing what were we doing? Shoulder touches, or we were doing
Yes.
something. I can't remember what we were doing, but that was funny. I
Th-
remember you were my partner for that.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Hey, sweet. So I like that. So learning a lot about health. So
Hmm.
hey, maybe we should do that. Maybe I should have you on the podcast sometime, and we like another time, and we'll just talk like health and stuff like that. I'll just talk about all the stuff we've learned. What do you think about that?
That sounds good. I can tell you all the things not to do that I have done in my life. I can be
Yeah.
the don't do this, and you can say you do this.
Yeah. Hey, that sounds good. The thing is, I mean, you might know this about me already, but I play devil's advocate on anything. So, like, if someone has a point of view, I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, I have heard, let's talk about this real quick. Right. I just love that because I don't know, especially with health studies, they're very hard to really get valid information, right, on what is healthy and what's not to a certain extent because you can't really, like, I thought about that. So like food studies, right? So if you think
Hmm.
about it, like if you were to say, because they've had this egg study for a while, right? So back in the day, they were like, okay, eggs are bad. You should only have one, maybe a day, right? So they did this study where they gave this group one egg a day, and then they just studied them and they checked, you know, their levels before. Then after eating an egg a day, they checked their levels again. But what those studies don't show is they don't take into account like people's lifestyles. Are
Right.
what environments do they live in? Are they highly anxious? Because the thing is, stress can affect your body worse than even some foods can, right? So then you think about, okay, well, how does that play effect? What else are they eating? Are they eating a ton of sugar outside of that, or what does their diets look like? So that's why I say when they do food studies, it's weird because now the newest thing I heard is like they said, eat all the eggs you want. Eggs are so good for you. So it's like, okay, so you find out the good cholesterol apparently in eggs is totally fine. So you can have as many as you want and you're good. So
Yeah.
it's very weird.
Yeah. And it all comes back to one of the things I'm figuring out. Again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but the thing that keeps popping up is that crazy word balance. You know, don't eat 50 eggs a day, and they're probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
You know, balance it out.
I agree.
You know, variety and and you don't have to beat the paint off the walls. Just kind of pick the middle lane and go with it that way. So yeah, you're right. The food studies, there are too many variables. Were they having one egg with 6 donuts and a shot of whiskey while they were smoking,
Exactly.
yeah, the one egg didn't kill you. It was the 28 cigarettes you had with it that
Yeah.
that hurt you. So yeah, it's kind of hard to figure that out.
But I totally agree with you. I think balance, moderation. I think out of everything I've learned, I feel like that's the key at the end of the day. I think we get too
Yeah.
caught up in the details. Is like, hey, if
Hmm.
we if you eat this exact regimen, you're going to lower your cholesterol by this much. Okay, is that
Right.
realistic? Is that something I could do as a daily routine? I don't
Yeah.
know. Got to take that into account too.
Exactly.
And then, okay, so next question. So, what are you doing for fun?
For fun. Oh, lots of different things. My wife and I like to travel. Um, we were fortunate enough in May we got to take our kids and their significant others to Cabo for a week. So we had never been to Cabo San Lucas before, so we went down there. That was a blast. We're planning some trips in the future, so that's going to be fun. I think down the road a little bit. Um, so really looking forward to that. During the pandemic, we bought a condo at a lake a couple of hours away, and that was kind of our escape. Is we would, instead of being locked up in the house, we would go to the lake and hang out at our condo and just get away from stuff for a while. And so that was fun, being out at the lake, hiking, and just being out on the boat, subboarding, doing all kinds of stuff like that. And this spring, we sold that condo. We had moved to a new house after I retired, and it's a little bigger. So we said, you know what? Let's focus on staying here. We'll get out of the lake business for a while. If we want to get back in, that's fine. But I think it's been kind of fun. It gives us something else to focus on. And I guess over the last few years, we've kind of picked some iconic concerts to go to. We have different musical tastes, but we find something. It was funny the week the world shut down back in 2020 in March. The Sunday night before everything shut down, we went to see the Eagles Hotel California tour. My wife and I had never seen them. We both liked the Eagles, and that was just an amazing concert, amazing thing. And we said, okay, we need to do more of this. We don't get out and see enough live music. So about a year and a half later, the Rolling Stones went through Dallas. It was a really stormy night. And I think if I remember right, my wife was traveling, so we didn't get to go see them, but there were tickets available for their show in Vegas. So a week later, we jetted out to Vegas and saw the Stones at Allegiant Stadium. Again, an iconic show, a band that we had never seen before. And I don't think my wife was a huge Rolling Stone fanatic until she saw him. And then it was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. 78-year-old Mick Jagger is running like a 25-year-old up and down this stage, changing outfits. That was an amazing show. Saw Elton John live, Rod Stewart. That was a good one. And our most recent show was in May. I saw the Foo Fighters for the first time.
Okay.
And if you have not seen them, run, do not walk to get to the nearest Foo Fighters show.
Okay.
It was amazing. I think I like storytellers in music, and I think Dave Grohl's a great storyteller, but the energy that band brings is absolutely incredible. Um, it was the first night of the new tour that they were kicking off, and he walked out and he just walked up to the stage, to the microphone, and said, "It's going to be a long night, MFers." And for almost 3 hours, they laid it out. It did not stop, and that was pretty incredible.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. yeah. So that was fun. So we haven't figured out our next icon to go see, but we're trying to catch up with a lot of these people before they pass on to the next plane. You know.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny that that's one of your goals too. My one of my goals actually this past year was the same, is to start seeing more concerts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, our music tastes are different. I mean, you know that, but
Yeah.
but dude, there's something nice about seeing bands, and it's funny to your wife's point. It's funny how like I can not really care for a band, but the moment you see them live, you're like, okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's quite a few bands like that that if I wouldn't have seen them live, I wouldn't have listened to their music. But the minute you see them live and see kind of what they're about, I guess
Mm-hmm.
maybe you connect with it emotionally, and maybe because you're there. I don't know, but like I don't know. I've had quite a few bands, and I'm like, okay, these guys are awesome, and I would have never thought about it otherwise. So
Yeah, live music makes a difference. Like, she's a big Chris Stapleton fan, and I said, you know what, I'll go. I'll go through it. Now he won't be the first music I put on to play, but I don't not like it.
yeah,
Um, and here you go. Here's a terrible secret. If you have to edit this out on the podcast, I understand. But we we were sitting around one Friday evening. It had been a crazy week, a long week, and um, emotional just from the standpoint of a lot of stuff going on for my wife at work and things happening. And she goes, I just need to relax, decompress, just something mindless on TV. And I turned the TV on, and one of the app things that popped up was Disney Channel. So I turned it on there, and the Taylor Swift concert was on, and I go, "We're in." This, and you know what? That was impressive.
yeah,
I could not tell you two Taylor Swift songs. And Emmy McAtee, I apologize if you see this. I know you're a huge fan, and please don't hate me forever for this, but it was amazing. The energy that that young lady brought, the talent that she has and stuff. I get why everybody is in love with her. And Jell, I know Jell's a big fan too. So Jell, if you see this, shout out to you. I won't say that I'm an official Swiftie, but total respect for what she does and her talent. It's pretty awesome.
yeah. No, I can imagine. I can definitely respect. Like, I'm not a huge fan of her music, never have been, but yeah, I mean, I respect like the amount of work they put into the concerts and the shows.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine it being amazing. Now, I didn't watch the Eras tour, but for some reason, I knew that's where you were going when you talked about this. So it's like
Yeah,
Disney Channel. I was like, oh, you watched the Eras tour, but I might end up watching it with my daughter because she's a Swiftie. So
yeah,
we'll
dude,
see.
pack a lunch. It's 3 hours long.
That's what
So
I heard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a good concert, a good performance. So yeah, I might check that
yeah,
out.
yeah, it's good. Live music makes a difference. If you are on the fence on an artist, live music will definitely make the difference. You're right.
Agreed. Man, I would love to see you go to a concert like a concert that I'd be into. I would love to see you at something like that, some metal concert, something heavy.
Yeah,
Just seeing
yeah.
how does Melvin react to one of these? I don't know. I'm so
I'd
curious.
probably snap my neck, man.
No,
Trying to.
see, I know you'd be headbanging, getting into it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I love that. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe the future. Maybe we go to maybe we find a middle ground, do some type of concert that's maybe not too heavy, but something kind of in the middle. That could be fun.
yeah, yeah. That would be good. That would be interesting.
Let's do it. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, so we have a few questions left. So the next one is this is kind of your part of the podcast to share anything you want. So like anything that you're working on, if you want people to find you, so that could be your social medias, any projects you're working on. This is just kind of like your, I don't want to say 15 minutes of fame, but this is like where you get to talk about whatever you want to talk about to promote yourself. So
Yeah. Well, sorry you're going to end with this. Maybe you can edit it and put it at the beginning. I got nothing, man. I'm an average guy. I'm living life. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. That's one thing that's refreshing and I guess awakening when you retire is you become Mr. Irrelevant. You're not in the workforce, so nobody cares. But no, if someone wanted to reach out, like I said, I am on social media. I don't post a lot. I don't do a lot. I'm not promoting anything. But let's see, I can't even remember. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, I on Instagram I actually have two accounts. When I was in Econ, I had one for work and one for private, for personal. So one of them is Melvin D6398, and the other one is Melvin Douglas Next. So those two are on Instagram. On X, I'm Melvin Douglas 3. Um, I'm I am on Peloton. We have a Peloton bike and a treadmill. If you want to find me on Peloton, I'm M Doug in Flomo, Flower Mound, Texas. So if you're a Peloton rider and want to connect, I'm out there. But that's about it. I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm on those platforms. But again, I don't do a whole lot.
What I'll do is I'll
So
put all those links in the description so
okay,
they can find it there. If that works for you.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. And then here we go. So, I forgot I got another question I almost forgot. Okay, so we summed up a lot today. So we talked about your childhood, we talked about struggles, something you're currently going through, some skills and talents. So, if you had a book, so like a story based on your life from when you were born to now, what would that story be called?
That might have been the second biggest struggle. Maybe that was a struggle figuring that one out. I narrowed it down to two.
Okay.
Two things I think. One is, I'm a big. I told you I like storytellers, musicians like that. Joe Walsh is somebody I really like, and Joe Walsh had a song come out a few years ago. It was just "I'm an ordinary average guy." I think that might be the book. I'm just a pretty average dude. I'm not, you know, care about my family and basic stuff and just trying to live life and not cause a lot of waves. And I'm not going to be the next big thing, but I'm okay with that. So just living the ordinary average life is pretty good for me. The other one that kind of would be maybe the second book or kind of related, or the workbook or something, would be, I always tell my wife that on my if I get buried and I have a headstone, you should put on there that it's better to be lucky than good is my motto, because I've no matter how hard I try, and I do think you make your own luck. I think when you work, you make your own luck, but it's always better to have a little luck on your side. And it seems like through life, I've been really lucky. Things have broken my way, especially when they probably shouldn't. Um, you know, but I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the atmosphere that you create around you. Trying to be positive, trying not to be that guy or something like that, is keep your head down, but be in tune to what's going on around you. Don't be oblivious. Look for other people. I think the two key words in that would be respect and grace. Respect other people and give them some grace. That's probably something that I've struggled with, especially younger in life. But as I've gotten older, it's easier to do, and it becomes more my guidepost. Is have respect for other people. We're all going through something. Everybody's got something going on. So respect that and give them some grace. And I have not always been famous for that, but I'm trying to incorporate that more and lead with that. So yeah, probably better to be lucky than good and just an ordinary average guy.
Love that. You basically summed up this podcast. Like, that's the purpose of the 98% podcast, right? Realizing that we're all
Yeah.
normal, we're all average, we're all going through the similar stuff. Um, and then, yeah, I like that. It's better to be lucky than good, because I think so much we think we have so much control over our outcomes in our lives, when you have to admit that there's so many things happen. And of course, this is the thing. So something will happen. And then after it happens, then we can draw all the conclusions on, okay, so we got from here to here. This is how I
Mm-hmm.
did it. And like, I feel like that's how a lot of self-development people, self-improvement people talk about it. But really, like, sometimes that thing, there's no way you could have ever planned for. And sometimes things just happen, and you just happen to be maybe right. You're good to the people around you, so they think of you when something happens, or maybe just something comes up and you're ready for it. And I think that that's it's a good way to look at things. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to really believe in people saying that, I'm a self-made person and I pull myself up by my bootstraps.
Yeah,
Yeah, to a degree, you probably did.
yeah,
But you can't tell me that there wasn't someone that gave you a break somewhere along the way. Something they did or didn't do broke your way. And that's fine. Yay you for having the stick to itiveness and everything to keep after it and go after your goal and keep trying. Yay, that's awesome. But don't discount the things that happen behind the scenes that you didn't see.
agreed.
um don't you know I heard Willie Nelson say it one time in a movie a long time ago, don't get too high on your own supply. Don't don't get too caught up in yourself. Just accept those things and move on.
Yeah, so true. Because I mean, think about it. For every 100 people that are driving and grinding and pulling themselves up on the bootstraps, yeah, maybe two of those are actually make it, right. And it has to do with, to your point, it has to do with luck. It's got knowing the right people, being in the right place, right time, and those are things you can't account for, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So, and then we'll decide. So, the name of the our episode is going to be one of the stories that you pick. So, I know you have two, so we'll figure out which one
Okay.
makes the better thumbnail for you. And then, lastly, is I like to do this. So, what we'll do is the last guest answered the question from the previous guest and made a new question for you. So what you're going to do is I'll have you answer the question from the last guest, and then you get to make up a question for the one that comes after you.
Okay.
So let me find his question real quick. And if I recall, I think it's similar to one that we've already done. Let me see. Okay. So his question was, because we mentioned fun, but his was, when was the last time you had real fun? And he really emphasized real fun on his question. So take as much time as you need to think about that. But
um yeah, it was in May was the last time I had real fun. And there were a couple of things that happened. One, I told you about the trip to Cabo with the family. That was real fun. Just being with adult kids, their significant others, my wife, in a nice place, a different environment. We didn't do anything crazy. Yeah, you probably, one of the pictures I sent was taken there, and people that will see it in the open, like the kissing the camel. That was, camel ride. That was fun. It was nothing real exotic, real crazy, but hey, that was fun. So I got joy and excitement out of that, about being with my family somewhere different and being able to have that experience with them. That was fun. And then the Foo Fighters concert, that was fun. I had been trying to see them a couple of times. The first time I tried to see them was the tour that when their drummer died. So we had tickets. Taylor Hawkins passed away, and they canceled that tour. And then they put their album out, their next album. Well, here we are, and they were touring in support of that last winter, and they were coming to El Paso, and so we were going to go to El Paso and see it. It was a weeknight, but it's like, you know what, we can get there and do this. And we had an airline malfunction where we ended up sitting on the tarmac, missing our flight. And my wife had work the next day. She was going to be able to do it from El Paso, but we didn't know when we were going to be able to do that. So we ended up eating tickets to that concert, sitting on a tarmac. And about 3 weeks later is when the tickets came out for the show here in Dallas in May, and I bought them and told my wife, if I can't see him this time, I will never try again. It's just one of those where this is getting too hard for me. I'm getting too old. So I was able to do that. But the show was fun. The energy, seeing some, you know, hearing the songs that make a difference, that are important to you, that you like, seeing them live, the energy of the people around there. That was, you know what that is, but that was fun. That was a good time. So those are probably the last two things I've done that were really, really fun. And I'll
Love that.
probably get fussed at because I forgot something between now and then, but those were the two that popped up first.
I love it. You know what's funny is you mentioned the people around you at concerts. Hey, you can't judge a book by their cover at concerts. I found that
No.
out. Like the concert, I went to a concert like junior year of high school, like the super heavy. I mean, you want to talk about like the heaviest music you can think of? That those were the bands that were there, and the people there, like I was just like, why are these people at this concert? There was like plenty of people that looked like they should have been at like, pop concerts. There was like 80-year-old guys at this concert. There
Yeah.
was the funniest thing was there was this lady like right in front of me. She was wearing just, just a swimsuit, short shorts, whatever. And she looked like she should be at like, yeah, some pop concert. And she's literally screaming all these lyrics to this song by
Hmm.
this band called Cannibal Corpse. If you ever heard of them, they are
I have
super heavy.
actually.
Yeah, and she's singing everything, and I'm just like, dude, this lady is wild, and it's just so yeah. So like, it's fun, and those are the memories like I remember. Like I remember like obviously the show, 'cause the bands there put on a great show, but just this. Think about the people around me and just seeing like, man, these guys are just having their best life, and I would have never guessed they were into this style of music either. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I were laughing when we walked up to our seats and looked around. It looked like the retirement home had let out. And I mean, we fit right in. It was my demographic. It was people 50 plus hanging out there, and I'm going, all right, I feel at home here. But it was the whole place wasn't like that, but the couple of rows we were in
Yeah.
was that type of demographic. And I can tell you that none of us sat down the entire show. For
Hey,
for 3 hours, we were all on our feet, so
hey,
that was cool.
awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Okay. So now, what question do you want to leave the next guest?
that's a tough one. I think um, gone back and forth on one, and I'm going to go a little deep, but the question I think I want to ask somebody and make him think about is, what have you done recently to change somebody else's life? It's a question I ask myself every now and then. Just kind of, when I get caught up in myself or something else, it's just you kind of stop for a minute and go, this may be kind of important, but what have I done to change somebody else's life? So
I assume for the best, right?
for the best.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you clarified that.
I
The
just,
devil's in the details, right?
I just wanted to have fun with it. I
No,
just, I
that's,
just, I
you're
just
right.
imagine being on there and somebody like, "Well, I changed someone's life the other day in traffic."
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait,
There
what'd
you
you do?
go.
No, that's funny.
No.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that question. That's gonna be a good one. So it's funny. I actually have an interview with someone tomorrow, so they're gonna get
Okay.
your question. So I'm excited about
Great.
that. So
Yeah. Good. Good. Tell
cool.
them not to watch this one and come on social media and get mad at me if they don't like that question, if it's too hard.
Oh,
Tell them not to torch me on the socials,
oh,
but
I don't think they will. They
I
seem they
doubt.
seem nice.
But that's good. I'm sure they are. If they're on this podcast,
Oh,
they're a cool person.
I
They're
love it.
upstanding. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so anything else that you want to share? So that was the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. It was the opportunity to catch up, to get to talk to you. We back in the old days, old timer syndrome here, but we talked about this several times at Econ Summits and stuff about that was such a cool group. That was, I'm biased, but that was lightning in a bottle. The chemistry with that group of amazing people. you look at the folks that were there, our peers, and where they've gone in life and what they've done. That was a concentration of really amazing people and personalities. And that was one thing I always noticed and wish that we could capture stuff like this so that we could talk to our peers and just, you know, spitball stuff at them and get their answer, get their input, find out more about them. I think, you know, H and C Dub and Nada, we did one with her, kind of a test at a coffee shop or something somewhere, and started to do some others. And then, like all really good ideas, we all get busy and it fell apart. But I think I love the concept and being able to do that. And that would, it's just awesome to stay connected and get to know more about the people that I worked with and that were really impactful in my life.
That's funny. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I just felt like that whole group, it was funny too, because that whole group we were all so different and so diverse and so unique. But we all just had skills, right? Skills, talents. We just like, there was just stuff about us that were just different. And I love that. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's going to be more of us on this. Hopefully I've reached out to a few. So I think this would be a perfect time if you want to call anybody out, because being able to say like, hey, Melvin called you out on the podcast, you got to hop on now, is going to be pretty good. So is there
Yeah.
anybody that comes to mind that you'd love to just hear from?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, she's out there a lot, but love to hear from her. Emily McAtee,
Yeah.
Chris Williams, C-Dub, love to hear from him, what he's up to. H is always a good time. Get
Okay.
the H and Aloe show, get those two knuckleheads together and let the
We'd never
comedy
close this podcast down.
the comedy would commence, and they know I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah.
I hope, but no, those guys were always great. You know, uh, just a lot of neat people. See if you can track down Zito. Hearing from the man, that
Yeah.
he was always inspirational.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah, and I do not mean to neglect or leave anybody out. There were just so many cool people, any and all. You know, Jill, Kat, um, um, Eric, Garrett, all of those folks had so much stuff going on, doing so many impactful things. You mentioned Han, all of that group, Lebec, our coffee man in Colorado, Danny Lebec,
Yeah.
D Mitch, all of those people. I think I learned from all of. I know I learned from all of them, and it was awesome. Walt, what is Walter up to? Leading APLA. So yeah, just any of those folks. Consider yourself tapped and reach out and talk to Ricky.
I love that. So, like, think about it, I got the Melvin endorsement. It's gonna be good. But yeah, so I think it's funny because I wrote Emily down too. So because you mentioned her earlier, and I was like, dude, I haven't reached out to her. She would be great to have on here. So, but
Yeah,
some of these people I have reached out to already. So waiting to see response and time frame. Um, but yeah, one person I want to hear from too. I want to hear from Shannon. You remember Shannon?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was his roommate like first time, and I love Shannon because he was just real. Like,
yeah.
so about him, I just loved. We'd hang out all the time, and he just like he would shoot it straight no matter what. And you're like,
Uh-huh.
I like this, I like that. So yeah, I got
Yeah,
a whole list down here, and we'll get them all on for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And then, oh, that made me think of somebody else. And darn, I'll think of it later. I'll text it to you later. Somebody popped in along those lines. Somebody that definitely was a straight shooter. Oh, Hickman,
Oh yeah,
Hickman, that Hickman and EJ. Those are two that would be awesome.
yeah, that'd be sweet. I'll
Yeah.
start reaching out. I'll start just DMing everybody and just drop it in there. See who want to see who wants to hop
there,
on. So
there you go.
love that.
That'll be awesome.
Well, Melvin, it's been awesome. I thank you so much for being on the podcast. And like I said, I think we'll probably do this again. And I think it might be fun just to have like, let's talk health. Let's talk what we're learning in
Sure.
that kind of realm. Just
Okay.
have some fun. So appreciate your time. And yeah, it's been so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for thinking of me and for having the time and connecting. It is awesome. I enjoyed it and look forward to doing it again for sure.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I
All
will
right.
catch you later, Melvin.
All right. Take care, Rick.